I'm joined today by Greg Taylor, Chairman and Managing Partner of GTE Holdings, a parent company for Exactly by GTE. They specialize in restoration recruiting and restoration sales force, specializing in restoration sales management. So today's topic of discussion is the management of restoration industry sales reps. We invited Greg to share what he sees as the challenges that surround the management of a restoration sales team and what he is doing to solve those challenges. Thank you for joining me, Greg.
Thank you for having me. It's a big subject out there, so I'm eager to engage.
So first, could you talk more about GTE Holdings and how its two divisions serve the restoration industry?
Absolutely. So I formed GTE Holdings now over 20 years ago, and the two divisions that represent the restoration industry are really kind of married. So we jumped into the industry through a consultancy, and we kind of understood the industry. Felt like there was a big struggle in trying to hire and retain talent, find that talent. And so we decided, let's form a company that is a recruiting agency, which is what we did with Exactly by GTE. And so now we're North America's largest restoration industry recruiting agency. Folks turn to us when they're looking for talent in North America, and we go out and find them that talent. We have been getting a lot of requests for sales reps over the last couple of years, and we could kind of see this coming and decided, listen, let's understand how sales reps are going to be managed, because we can hire them for, get them hired, but are they going to survive, right? And the key is that local organization that they're working for, that franchise owner that hires them, do they have the infrastructure to be able to handle a sales rep? They're mostly operations people. And we begin to feel like they did not have that infrastructure. And so in order to address that, we form Restoration Salesforce, which says, hey, if you've got a sales organization or a sales rep, we'll come in and manage that person and put processes in that make them accountable and successful. If you don't, then we'll get you somebody hired and then do the same thing. And so that's how we have taken a look at the industry through those two different lenses.
Okay, so it's full spectrum. So it's not just getting the company the sales rep, it's also managing them. So all they have to do is just press the easy button.
And that's really what we want. That's really what we want them to do, right? Because they're, for the most part, I'm generalizing, restoration franchise owners are operations people. And so, yes, you have to have a sales organization to either retain or grow market share, but it's not your thing. And it's a total different mindset. The mind of a sales rep is totally different than operations people. And so this says, do what you do well. Let us do what we do well for you. And the combination we think is going to make you terrific.
Like the perfect outsourcing. So
yes.
Now focusing on Restoration Salesforce, who is your clientele and how exactly, like what function does it serve? Like, do you help find and place talent in restoration? So you just kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yes. So we're fortunate that the two different divisions of our business allow us to kind of marry up, right? So our client could be a really large franchise. I mean, literally this morning we had a meeting with a franchise owner that does almost $50 million a year. He's got, I believe, 13 locations. And he's struggling. He's got one sales manager who is not from the industry, doesn't understand it. He's got 5 or 6 sales reps, but he's gone through more than 30 reps in the last year. Like the turnover has been unbelievably difficult for him, but it's just because the infrastructure is not in place on the sales side. Another client that we talked to could have just a single sales rep, and they're growing their business, but the sales rep is not producing. So maybe that sales rep is good, but it's not properly trained. Maybe that sales rep, we do an assessment, maybe that sales rep's not qualified and we need to get someone else. The beauty of what we're able to do is through our recruiting agency, we find sales reps all the time, every day. So we can go out and find that person, put that talented person in place, get them trained up, and then manage them going forward.
Okay. So I understand the restoration industry isn't the only industry you've worked in. Can you share a bit about your background in the funeral industry, how you ended up here, and how that experience lends itself to serving restorers?
That's a great question. So yeah, I mean, I'm getting old now, but yeah, I started my business career working for a company that was one of the largest in the funeral service industry. I can remember the during the first interview, I said, "Listen, do I have to see dead bodies?" Right? That was my biggest concern. Like, I may not be able to do this, be able to do this job. Yeah, they said, "No, you won't." They lied. But
Of course
our
not.
client, yeah, exactly. Like our clients are funeral homeowners. And we had two divisions of that company. One I started on is a funeral insurance product. And the objective is if mom is 88, dad's 89, dad's not doing well, mom's good, but she's 88.
Mhm.
We go in, we pre-plan a funeral, right? And historically, we would say, here's $10,000 to pre-plan that funeral. That funeral director would put that money in trust, and then send us a 1099 tax form every year until dad passed, and then he would go get the money.
Okay.
They didn't like doing the 1099s. And a company came up with the idea of funeral insurance. So we could go in with mom and dad and say, hey, dad needs to get his funeral planned, locked in, and they would use an insurance policy to cover that. Now they don't pay a 1099 tax, they don't have to send out 1099s, and they get paid a commission. Funeral directors and funeral homeowners loved it. So those were our clients. And then our other division was the nation's leading casket manufacturer. So for me, I got to deal with small businesses every day, and they so much remind me of the restoration industry in that the funeral homeowners know their service exceptionally well. And I was so proud that the company was a very big company. I was the first African American in senior management for them. At that time, they were 112 years old. So it was exciting to open up the doors, right, and be able to grow a business. But we found that operationally, while they were sound, right, they really struggled with the idea of let's go get market share by locking in families for future funerals.
Oh,
Selling, right? So
Mhm.
so you have to do the same thing in almost every industry. You have to have ops, you got to have sales. Restoration industry is made up of some great people. They know restoration like the back of their hand. But just like the funeral homeowners, the sales part of the business has been a struggle for most of them. And this model that worked in funeral service, we think will work very well in restoration.
Okay. So where did you come up with the idea and the need for Restoration Salesforce?
Yeah, so it was in 2022, Mildred. We did my annual kickoff meeting for Exactly. And to people who didn't believe me because I saw their eyes, I said, the number of job requisitions we get that are sales reps is going to grow exponentially.
Mhm.
It's going to be the newest thing out there, and we need to be prepared for it. I saw it because for years, what restoration companies did was hire a young lady mostly who would go out to a insurance agent and drop off donuts or bring coffee, and that was what they did. They'd show up at golf tournaments, right, and have a cart and just make friends.
Mhm.
Go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, that sort of thing. Really didn't go out and sell. I thought that the industry needed sales reps. So when I had an opportunity as a consultant in the funeral industry to say, let's get our BDMs or get our marketing people out and let's focus in on sales reps, the process went terrific. And so understanding that need was there, it had reminded me again of the funeral service, where indeed they didn't have anybody out selling. Then they thought, well, the funeral director can sell this product, but they're not salespeople. So
Right.
we started putting salespeople in place in funeral service. It's the same thing here, is we really needed to focus in on the sales reps. Understanding that clients were going to hire sales reps. And now that I'm on the recruiting side, come to us and say, hey, can you hire us a sales rep? I need to make sure that sales rep has a really bright future, right? I have two masters, I like to say, on every transaction. I have the client, and I have the candidate client.
Yeah.
And I need them both to work together to be successful. Well, if you don't have a training program and you don't have a sales infrastructure, if you don't have sales processes, the idea that that sales rep is going to be productive and stay for a long period of time just clearly disappears. And that's not what we want. We want career people who are out there who are making a tremendous living, creating the revenues that the funeral home, that the restoration owner wants. That missing piece was where we thought restoration sales force could really, really come into play.
Yeah, because otherwise you're living on a prayer, which,
You are. There is no question. And I think, believe it or
retention
not,
is
Mildred,
key.
yes, you can't imagine how many restoration companies are out there living on a prayer. They get frustrated. Well, this guy is not producing. Well, he's not been trained, right? A sales meeting basically goes, who are you going to see this week? Outstanding, right? That's the sales meeting. There is no singular process that people put into place, either by location or by franchise, that is easily repeatable and has accountability, KPIs, and real results. That's important, and it simply does not exist on a mass scale at all in this restoration industry.
Definitely a need for it. So how is restoration sales force different from maybe the many sales consultants in the industry?
That's a great question, because there's some good ones out there, right? I mean, I know some of these sales consultants, and they're super smart people. I've gone to some of their classes, and I think there is a need for that in the industry without question. I think the key differentiator is that consultants kind of stop at the dispensation of information, right? So I go into a class, I'm there all day long, or maybe it's a 2-day deal, and they're feeding me information. This information is great. Like, it makes all the sense in the world. I got great notes. I jump on the airplane, I fly back home, and I'm in the restoration business. I got chaos, right? This job is late. This one just came in. I got to do this. And so the information that I knew that I loved on Tuesday when I left that class, by Friday afternoon, I probably haven't even gotten to it. And so that's the challenge, is that if it's just information that's given, so much of it is not being able to be passed on because somebody goes back and they get super busy.
Yeah.
Additionally, if it is, let's say, a sales manager that goes to one of these things, they come back and they're dealing with sales management, but the processes and the accountability and the day-to-day understanding of what was yesterday's plan, how did we do, what's today's plan, and what's our expectation, right? Those things that need to have to happen on a daily basis. Where our industry struggles, I think, is the idea that I'm going to pay. So, Mildred, if you're a sales rep, and I'm a restoration owner, I'm paying you a salary to go out and produce an intangible, right? You go out and get a sale. Guess what? You're not coming to the office to ring a bell to say, hey, right? Because there is nothing that happens until there's a loss.
Yeah.
So the right type of sales rep is super important. If I'm somebody that says, hey, you know what? Guess what? I sold a bunch of computer software. Well, I know that the client says yes, signs the contract. I deliver the software. We get it installed. I'm touching it. I know the cycle. If I'm a sales rep on the restoration side, I am going out to sell to Walmart. Walmart says, yes, we'll use you. There's no revenue coming in until there's a loss. So you have to have the proper mindset, and you have to have the proper processes to be able to get that done. And where the industry struggles is the ongoing day-to-day management and day-to-day training. And that's what a consultant can't do. And that's the void that we're filling, is we're saying every single day we're going to have a plan. We're going to work with that person. We put them through a training course. It makes a difference. That's the differentiator, as I would see it.
Okay, so can you describe just the process that makes restoration sales force like elite?
Yes, I can, and it doesn't start with me, believe it or not. So I needed to figure out who is out there that understands sales management and that type of training versus being a consultant. And I found my partner, Tim Miller.
Hmm.
Tim has started a sales management company for the restoration business called Business Development Associates back in 2002. So for 22 years, he's been out there. And to me, he's the absolute industry standard because he doesn't serve as a consultant. He really gets in and works with that sales rep and manages that sales rep. How
Hmm.
Tim came to me was through a client, through Exactly, who had come down. He was not based in Florida. He was based in Pennsylvania. He
Okay.
came down to Florida because of the hurricane and did a lot of cleanup work down there and said, hey, this is a really good market. Greg, I think what I want to do is start us being here in Florida full time. I'm going to get an office. Can you help me get this person, an estimator, and then a project manager? And then I think he got an office manager. And then he came back and he said, Greg, now can you get me a sales rep? And I said,
Hmm.
okay, like you're just starting down there. Who's going to manage this sales rep? Said, don't worry about it. Tim Miller handles all of our sales training. And I was like, who's Tim Miller?
Hmm.
And so he had great results working with Tim. Tim had a superior system, and I really trusted this client. He's a terrific client. And so I reached out to Tim as I was thinking about Restoration Salesforce and the partnership that needed to come into play. We
Hmm.
can find the people, your program can actually get them trained, and together we can be this real power. So I think that's was the beginning. So here's how it works. Let's imagine that you already have a sales rep. Then we will start with an assessment of that sales rep. We use a very, 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 very technical, I think we get a 24-page printout of this assessment. It's called the OMG assessment. And we're able to predictive, based on that assessment, say if this person has a chance to be successful or not. Now, let's say
Really?
the study comes back and it says they're not likely to, but
Hmm.
they're already out there cranking out $1 million a year. Well, we clearly think that rep has overcome whatever challenges the assessment says. But the assessment really says 74% of people that are sales reps are not qualified to be sales reps. That's what their study has shown in their 24-year history. And yes, and all the data points that they put together inside of this assessment, the number was staggering. But when you think about it, it's true. That's why if you think about people, in sales, they usually change jobs quite a bit. And the reason, sometimes it's the service or product, but often it's that these people are not a sales rep. So it starts with that assessment. If we're going to hire somebody new for you, they're also going to get the assessment before we say this is the person you need to hire. So we start by saying this person, based on an assessment, has a real opportunity to be successful as a sales rep. They then jump into this 4-week training program, which is not just a bunch of videos. This is online. This is back and forth. This is virtual. This is testing. This is trial and error, right? This is role play. And then halfway through that, we actually show up on site. And we do some field training with those folks and make sure that we're on the same page. We have them set up an appointment or two so that we can kind of go see how they approach that part of the business, and that sets them up for the back half of the training, for which we now can make it adaptive to that individual rep to say, listen, Mildred is terrific at closing. Her big challenge is she doesn't get enough people to see. So that's what we really need to train her on. So we set this up, right, with some flexibility in it to adapt to the individual person that we're talking about. Once they get through that training, then we put on some goodies. For example, we create a ton of marketing materials that are branded to each one of the locations. So if you're a Serve Pro in Oklahoma City, we're going to brand it that. If you happen to be a Paul Davis in Minneapolis, we're gonna brand it to that. So that now your sales rep has tools. And these tools are designed to be vertical specific. So we have marketing pieces that are great for insurance agents,
Hmm.
different ones that are great for plumbers, different ones that are great for commercial, and there's 14 sub verticals inside of commercial. So we have all these marketing pieces there, train the rep on how to use those marketing pieces so that we're able to go out in the field. They have day-to-day sales meetings with us, Monday through Thursday. They meet with us so that we can discuss the KPIs, what worked, what didn't work, that sort of thing. The objective is for us to be as connected as we can possibly be, have a trail and a track to run on. And all of this is really what the restoration franchise owner should be doing, but can't. They don't have the bandwidth. So we allow them to do what they do best, and that's restore. And what we do out is go get them more business to restore for the future. We think it's a good combination.
Oh yeah, more work, sure. I have a quick question for my next, but just to spin off of this one. So does the training happen if the person is shown to be that they will succeed, or is it mostly if they will not, or do you do it either way?
So if somebody, if they're assessed and it doesn't come back good, we suggest that you make a change.
Okay.
Yeah, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
I think we understand that our clients, again, they're investing, right, in an intangible for which there's only revenue when there's a loss. So part of being a good sales rep really is your ability to have enough business to go to. When you put enough business on the books, somebody is going to have a loss, and that's when you start seeing that revenue come in.
Yep.
But if somebody fails the assessment, we think that it's not best to continue to work with them, and that we can find somebody better. That's the beauty of having Xactly as the partner.
Yeah, well, that's true. It is what it is, like you said. So how large does a company need to be to use Restoration Salesforce?
They, I think that there's different versions, right? It's not so much the size as it is the goal, right? What's the goal? And then you back into, do you have the team to be able to do the service that the sales rep has promised? And that's what comes in this really get to know you conversation that we do up front. So let's imagine I'm a new franchise owner and I'm in the ServPro network, but I'm brand new.
Right.
We get you a sales rep. That rep goes out there and represents that this business can be handled by this company, and they get a loss 2 weeks later. Is this new location capable of having the manpower to handle this loss? Right? Mm-hmm. We talked to a client, actually a candidate that reached out to us and said, "Hey, I'd like to go through your training program." And the candidate explained to me that they worked for an independent. They had a huge deal that they got. There was a loss. Well, the company did not speak very well internally, the company that suffered the loss. So two people called who they thought they were supposed to call. One person called ServPro, the other person called this guy's company. This guy's company showed up in an unmarked truck with a husband and a wife that was carrying a baby. ServPro showed up in their green trucks with 4 people. It just absolutely changed that relationship, right? So we want to make sure that the company can back up the service that they're rendering, and that's the main thing when we look at what the size needs to be. Other than that, we can work with folks that have a single rep. We have a couple clients right now that don't have a rep at all, and they want us to find them a rep and then work with that rep. And then there are other companies that say, listen, we got reps, we even have a sales manager, but we don't have a lockdown process. Can you work with our sales manager, get them up to speed so that they can be able to train this stuff going forward? We absolutely can do that also.
Okay. Well, Greg, thank you so much for your time and insight on this topic that is so huge in our industry. Before we go, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about Restoration Salesforce?
Absolutely. Well, let's hope they all look at your magazine, right? I mean, I think that's important. they
Yes,
can call us. They can call us at 877-225-2230, 877-225-2230, or they can just send us an email at at restorationsalesforce.com. Either way, they're good to go. If they know me through Exactly, they can reach me through Exactly also, but we're here to serve.
Awesome. And, for more insights on restoration, remediation, and the people behind it all, you can visit our website, rnrmagonline.com, to see more about people like Greg and Restoration Salesforce. We're also on Apple, Spotify, and if you haven't, be sure to follow the podcast to keep up with our latest episodes and give us a quick review and a rating. We're also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, so we invite you to follow us there too. And this has been another awesome episode of R&R's Ask the Expert. Thank you for listening.